Vanessa dropped her wedding ring beside the divorce papers, and the gold struck glass like a tiny verdict. The mediation room was white enough to feel surgical. Frosted windows, chrome chair legs, a polished table cold beneath Elias Ward's wrists. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Somewhere beyond the sealed door, a printer coughed out page after page while the sharp scent of lemon disinfectant hung in the recycled air. Vanessa Cole sat across from him in a fitted navy suit, her dark hair pinned neatly above the pearl earrings she had bought for herself after their 3rd anniversary. She uncapped the mediator's silver pen without looking at Elias. "This should have happened years ago," she said. The attorney beside her shifted in his leather chair, but Vanessa's hand remained steady as she signed. Each stroke was quick, clean, final. Elias watched the woman who had once fallen asleep against his shoulder on the subway press the last period into their marriage. His work jacket smelled faintly of machine oil despite 2 washes. A pale burn crossed one knuckle, and metal filings remained trapped beneath one thumbnail. Vanessa noticed them. Her mouth tightened. "You could at least have dressed like this mattered." Elias glanced at the papers. "It matters." "Then why do you look like you came straight from that garage?" "Because I did." A humorless breath escaped her nose. "Of course you did." The mediator slid the property waiver toward Elias and quietly explained that he could request part of the savings account, the furniture, or the compact SUV registered in Vanessa's name. Elias read every line. Rain-damp tires hissed along the avenue 8 floors below, softened by thick glass. Vanessa folded her arms, the silk lining of her sleeves whispering. "Take the couch if you want it," she said. "You spent enough time on it waiting for your life to begin." The attorney lowered his eyes. Elias placed one palm flat on the waiver. For 6 years, he had absorbed words like those at breakfast tables and behind closed bedroom doors. Tonight, she wanted witnesses. "I'm not asking for anything," he said. Vanessa's gaze snapped toward him. "Don't turn this into pride. You have nothing, Elias. No career, no savings, no plan." She pushed the waiver closer until its edge brushed his hand. "You're 34 years old, and you still fix broken equipment for people who can barely pay you." Elias picked up the pen. Vanessa leaned back, perfume, jasmine, and something metallic, cutting through the disinfectant. "I wasted 6 years believing you would become someone." His signature moved across the paper in a single dark line. Vanessa looked at it, then at him, as if his silence had denied her the satisfaction she came to collect. "Say something." Elias capped the pen and returned it to the mediator. "You've said enough for both of us." Color climbed her throat. She pointed at his frayed cuff, the scarred hands, the boots dulled by shop dust. "This is why I'm leaving. Because you are a useless loser." The buzzing light seemed louder. The mediator's fingers stopped above the folder. Even Vanessa's attorney went still. Elias did not defend himself. He initialed the final page, surrendering every shared possession she had listed, then drew the file toward the center of the table. The ring lay on top, still carrying a faint smear from Vanessa's hand cream. "Keep that too," she said. Elias looked at the narrow band, but left it untouched. Instead, he reached beneath his cuff and adjusted the old steel watch on his wrist. Its crystal was scratched, its leather strap softened by years of wear. The only thing his father had ever given him without conditions. Vanessa had always called it junk. Elias rose. The chair legs scraped against the tile with a harsh, brief cry. "The marriage is dissolved once these are filed," the mediator said. Vanessa gathered her designer bag, already facing the door. Elias slipped the property waiver into the folder and buttoned his stained jacket over the watch. He had entered with a wife, a home, and a name she treated like dead weight. He left with none of them. Only the slow tick against his pulse and one question following him into the silent hallway. If everything visible had made him worthless to her, what had she never bothered to see? The compressor's uneven rattle followed Elias into the workshop before dawn, shaking dust from the steel rafters. Fluorescent tubes painted the concrete floor a tired blue, while burnt coffee and hot machine oil thickened the air. He hung his divorce folder on a nail beside the time clock, rolled up his frayed sleeves, and opened the compressor housing. Vanessa had once stood in that same doorway, pinching her nose as sparks hissed from a welding bench. "You fix everyone else's problems," she had said, staring at the unpaid invoices clipped near the register. "When will that make us money?" The compressor had belonged to Luis Ortega, a laid-off machinist with 2 children and $19 in his checking account. Elias replaced its cracked valve, wiped the grease from its serial plate, and marked the invoice paid. Luis could use it for contract work by sunrise. Vanessa had seen a man giving away labor. She had never stayed long enough to watch another man regain his livelihood. By 7, the roll-up door groaned open to gray light and the wet hiss of traffic. Luis arrived in a faded canvas coat, carrying a paper bag warm with breakfast sandwiches. When Elias tested the repaired machine, its motor settled into a clean mechanical hum. Luis offered 3 folded $20 bills. Elias closed the man's fingers around them. "Buy groceries. You worked all night. Then the repair is already paid for." Luis looked toward the apartment above the shop, where one lamp still burned behind fog glass. Vanessa used to count those lights as evidence that Elias had nowhere better to go. She never saw the envelopes he prepared at the scarred oak desk after midnight. Plain white, unmarked, each containing enough cash to cover a utility bill or a week of groceries for workers the factory had discarded. Elias had refused thank you notes. Gratitude, like wealth, could become a leash if a man needed too much of it. After Luis left, Elias climbed the narrow stairs. Cold seeped through the brick walls, and the radiator clicked without producing much heat. On the desk lay a bank statement Vanessa had once found between repair manuals. She had circled the low balance in red ink. $34, she had said, tapping the page with one lacquered nail. "This is what your principals are worth." What she had not known was that the balance had been lowered the previous afternoon when Elias covered a former welder's rent. Nor had she known why he never called anyone for help. Beneath the statement rested a heavy cream envelope, unopened for 7 years. A blind embossed W marked the flap. Elias turned it over, and the steel watch on his wrist caught the weak morning light. Memory came in fragments. A marble dining table long enough to seat 20. Silent staff moving beneath crystal chandeliers. His father's voice telling him that every door in America could open for the Ward name. Elias, 27 then, had removed the same watch and placed it between them. "If every victory is purchased before I earn it, none of it belongs to me." He had walked away from the penthouse, the private cars, and a future measured in billions, taking only the watch when his father pushed it back across the marble. Vanessa later met him in a 24-hour diner, where he repaired the waitress's jammed register before ordering dinner. She knew him as a mechanic named Elias Ward. She never asked why expensive boarding schools appeared on old documents or why he spoke about corporate debt like a man who had studied it at the dinner table. She saw worn boots and assumed there was nothing beneath them. The workshop phone rang below, sharp against the compressor's steady hum. Elias let it ring once, then twice. He fed the cream envelope into a metal drawer and locked it. On the desk, he placed 5 fresh envelopes for 5 unemployed workers, sacrificing the last of that month's available cash. Then he lifted the receiver. "Elias Ward," asked an unfamiliar voice, polished and formal. His thumb stopped against the watch's cracked crystal. "I'm calling on behalf of your father." Elias looked at the locked drawer. "Tell him my decision hasn't changed." He set the receiver down before the caller could answer, and the line went silent. 3 sharp knocks cut through the workshop, just as the last strip of daylight vanished behind the Queen's rooftops. The roll-up door trembled in its tracks, and cold air slipped beneath it, carrying the smell of wet pavement and gasoline. Elias looked up from a stripped gearbox as Vanessa entered through the side door without waiting. Her heels clicked across the concrete. She wore a camel coat over a cream blouse, and the diamond bracelet at her wrist flashed beneath the fluorescent tubes. A manila folder rested under one arm. "You changed the lock upstairs," she said. Elias wiped his hands on a gray shop rag. "The lease is mine now." Her eyes paused on him, as if she had expected the old apology to follow. None came. She set the folder on his workbench, pushing aside a tray of bolts with one manicured finger. The tax records were mixed in with my closing documents. I need your signature on 2 pages. Elias opened the folder and read them while the wall clock ticked above the silent compressor. Vanessa wandered toward the battered office chair, but did not sit. The workshop's dry heat carried the bitter scent of old coffee and welding smoke, neither of which belonged to the polished life she had already begun assembling without him. "There's something else," she said. Elias signed the first page. "What?" "My fiancé's driver quit this morning." The pen stopped. Vanessa smoothed one sleeve, still avoiding his eyes. "He has meetings in Midtown for the next 3 days, and the agency can't guarantee someone discreet on short notice. You know Manhattan. You're available, and you could use the money." Elias lifted his gaze. The word fiancé settled between them more quietly than the divorce decree had. Vanessa finally looked at him. "It's temporary. He pays well." "You came to my workshop," Elias said, "to ask me to drive the man you're marrying. Don't make it dramatic. It's work. For you, perhaps." A small crease appeared between her brows. "This is exactly your problem. You refuse opportunities, then act as if poverty is a moral achievement." She opened her purse and placed 5 crisp $100 bills beside his socket wrench. The paper looked unnaturally clean against the oil-darkened steel. 3 days. Cash. Months earlier, Elias would have lowered his eyes, softened his voice, and found a way to spare her the discomfort of hearing no. Now he took the unsigned second page from the folder, completed it, and slid the documents toward her. Then he picked up the bills. Vanessa's shoulders loosened. Elias crossed to the side door, opened it, and held the money out into the blue evening light. Wind stirred the edges against his fingers. "Take it." Her expression hardened. "Elias, I'm not your husband anymore. I'm not your emergency labor, and I will not sit behind the wheel while you teach another man to measure me by your standards." A city bus groaned past outside, spraying water along the curb. Vanessa took the cash slowly. "You're turning down $500 because of pride?" "No." Elias met her eyes without raising his voice. "I'm turning down you." Her fingers closed around the bills. For a moment, only the radiator pipes clicked inside the brick wall. Then she snatched up the folder and walked out, jasmine perfume trailing behind her into the smell of rain and motor oil. Elias shut the door. The latch struck home with a clean metallic snap. At 10:17 that night, the workshop phone rang again. Elias watched it from the darkened office while red brake lights drifted across the ceiling. He answered on the 4th ring. The same formal voice from that morning had lost its polish. "Mr. Ward, your father suffered a stroke 40 minutes ago. He's conscious, but his doctors cannot promise he'll remain that way." Elias's hand tightened around the receiver. Beneath his cuff, the old steel watch ticked against his pulse. "Where?" "War Memorial. Private cardiac floor." The locked drawer stood 3 feet away, the cream envelope hidden inside. 7 years of silence had once felt like control. Now a stranger on the telephone reduced it to a deadline. "A car can reach you in 20 minutes, the representative said. Elias looked toward the door he had finally closed on Vanessa, then reached for his coat. "Send it." Black glass slid between Elias and Queens as the sedan carried him toward Manhattan. The cabin smelled of cedar and new leather, its climate controls holding the air at a dry 70 degrees while rain stitched silver lines across the windows. 7 years ago, cars like this had waited whenever he lifted a hand. Tonight, Elias sat with grease beneath his nails and the old steel watch ticking under his cuff. Ward Memorial rose above the avenue in white stone and blue light. Adrian Ward's name carved over doors tall enough to admit an empire. The representative met Elias inside, where polished floors reflected silent elevators and the air carried antiseptic, lilies, and burnt espresso. His charcoal suit was immaculate. His voice was not. "Your father is stable. For now." On the private cardiac floor, monitors pulsed behind frosted glass. Adrian lay beneath a thin cotton blanket, his face drained of the command Elias remembered. One hand rested beside an oxygen sensor, the other curled weakly when Elias entered. "You came," Adrian said. Elias stopped at the foot of the bed. "I came to see my father." Adrian's gaze moved over the stained jacket and paused at the watch. Not the company. No, a tablet and a leather document case waited on the bedside table. Adrian's representative opened the case, revealing transfer papers marked with the Ward Industries seal. Mr. Ward prepared these months ago. Voting shares, trusts, executive authority. Your signature would make the succession immediate. Elias did not touch the pen. The monitor counted 3 measure beats. Adrian drew a shallow breath. You wanted to earn your own life. You did. Now, take what was always yours. Elias closed the case. If I sign tonight, no one will know whether I returned for you or for the money. Does that distinction matter? It does to me. A muted alarm sounded in the corridor, followed by quick rubber soles and the whisper of a closing door. The representative unlocked the tablet instead. Rows of red figures filled the screen beneath a header. Aurora, Clean Energy Project. Then this may matter more, he said. The Aurora system was Ward Industries' attempt to build affordable storage units for hospitals, factories, and municipal grids. Its main investor had withdrawn after failed performance tests. Without new leadership, the board would shut it down at 9 a.m. Payroll would stop Friday. 3,800 employees would be affected. Elias took the tablet. He enlarged the engineering reports, his thumb leaving a faint crescent of machine oil on the glass. The battery modules were not useless. Their cooling assemblies had been designed for laboratory conditions, not factory heat. He traced the airflow diagram twice, then opened the field test photographs. They're scrapping a viable system because the housing traps 12 degrees, too much heat. The representative stared at him. Our engineers have reviewed those files for 6 months. Your engineers designed from a conference room. Elias pulled a pen from the document case and sketched a vented casing on the back of a hospital meal receipt. Give the cells more clearance. Replace the sealed panels with finned aluminum and retest under load. Adrian watched from the bed, saying nothing. Elias placed the sketch beside the unsigned inheritance papers. I won't accept the shares tonight. I won't take the trust, but I'll lead Aurora for 90 days. The representative stiffened. The board will demand formal authority. Give me operational control over the project only. No announcement, no family biography. And if Aurora fails, my name stays off it. Their jobs don't. Adrian's fingers tightened around the blanket. You would return to Ward Industries and still hide that you were my son? Elias looked through the glass wall at the nurses crossing beneath cold blue lights, then at the red payroll deadline glowing on the tablet. Vanessa had measured him by what he owned. Thousands of strangers were about to be measured by whether a board considered them affordable. He signed the temporary project mandate, not the inheritance. The representative gathered the papers, already reaching for his phone. The board meets in 7 hours. Elias removed his work jacket and folded it over the chair. Then tell them Aurora has a new project director. By midnight, access credentials lit the tablet with budgets, personnel files, and test schedules. The fortune remained locked inside the leather case. Responsibility did not. At the top of the project dashboard, a warning flashed in red. Payroll reserves 5 business days. Elias rolled up his sleeves. Give me every engineer who still believes this can work. By noon, camera shutters were snapping outside Ward Industries Research Center, bright as sparks against the tinted lobby glass. Reporters crowded behind brass barriers, their voices muffled by the doors, while inside, the air smelled of solder, cold aluminum, and coffee burned down to tar. Someone had photographed Elias leaving Ward Memorial in the family sedan. Another image showed Adrian's representative escorting him into Aurora's secured laboratory. The questions online were already tightening around a single name, Ward. Elias stood beside a prototype battery housing as the representative lowered his phone. A financial reporter is asking whether Adrian Ward's estranged son has returned. The cooling fans pushed warm air across Elias's rolled sleeves. Beyond a lab partition, engineers bent over circuit boards beneath hard white lights, working on 3 hours of sleep. No confirmation, Elias said. If we deny it, they'll dig harder. Then let them dig. Keep the team out of it. The representative placed a payroll report on the steel table. Its bottom line glowed red. A frozen investor account had accelerated the crisis. Aurora's researchers would miss Friday's checks unless $640,000 cleared by 4 p.m. Thursday. The trust can cover it in minutes, the representative said. Elias looked at the succession papers waiting inside a black portfolio. One signature would unlock more money than he could spend in several lifetimes. It would also turn every hour in the Queen's workshop into something Vanessa could dismiss as theater, a billionaire's son pretending to struggle until privilege became convenient. Not the trust. Then Aurora loses half its engineering team tomorrow. Elias closed the portfolio and drove back to Queens. Afternoon sunlight fell through the workshop's dusty windows in amber bars. The compressor hummed near the wall. Chains clinked softly above the hydraulic lift. Luis Ortega was collecting his tools when Elias removed the framed business license from beside the register. "What are you doing?" Luis asked. "Selling the building, equipment, and lease rights." The socket wrench slipped from Luis's hand and struck concrete. "This place is yours." Elias ran his thumb over the frame's splintered edge. Vanessa had called the workshop proof that he had failed to become someone. Yet every scar on the workbench had been earned, every invoice written in his own hand, every key obtained without the Ward fortune opening a door. "That's why it has value," he said. By 3, Elias sat across from the owner of a regional repair chain at the oak desk upstairs. A space heater clicked beside their shoes, releasing the dusty smell of overheated coils. The buyer signed an expedited purchase agreement for $675,000. Conditional on immediate possession. Elias signed next. The pen pressed hard enough to emboss the page beneath it. At 3:52, the proceeds cleared. At 3:56, Aurora's payroll account turned black. Elias sent authorization for every check, then placed the workshop keys in the buyer's palm. The metal was still warm from his hand. Across Manhattan, Vanessa sat beneath pendant lights in her fiancé's glass conference room, while a contract from Cole's Meridian Development occupied the screen. Aurora urgently needed specialized aluminum housings. Meridian offered them below market price. Her fiancé tapped the signature field. "Ward Industries wants speed. This puts us inside their clean energy division before anyone audits the margins." The room smelled of citrus polish and expensive cologne. Vanessa scanned the summary, but the technical appendix had been replaced with a simplified pricing sheet. "These production guarantees seem high." "They're insured," he said, turning the tablet toward her. "Signed as corporate liaison. It closes tonight." Vanessa hesitated, then pressed the stylus to the glass. What she did not see was the hidden subcontractor using untested recycled alloy, or the altered compliance certificate attached after her signature. Back in Queens, Elias stood beneath the workshop's raised door while the new owner changed the lock. Cold evening air moved through the empty bays. He carried out one cardboard box, the old watch, his work jacket, and the divorce folder with Vanessa's abandoned ring still inside. Then his phone chimed. Meridian Development supply agreement had been executed, bearing Vanessa Cole's authorization. Elias stared at her name as the steel door descended behind him. The workshop vanished inch by inch, until the final strip of amber light disappeared with a metallic crash. A cream envelope glided across Vanessa's glass desk, its embossed silver seal catching the late afternoon light. Beyond the windows, Manhattan burned gold along the Hudson, while the office ventilation whispered through air scented with white orchids and polished walnut. Vanessa broke the seal with one lacquered nail. The invitation named Meridian Development among the selected corporate guests at Ward Industries' private gala, where a new lead investor and Aurora's future leadership would be presented. Her fiancé read it over her shoulder, then loosened his silk tie with a smile. "This is our opening." Vanessa ran her thumb across the heavy cardstock. Attendance required confirmation by 6 that evening. Meridian's contract had gained them entry, but the gala would decide whether they remained merely a supplier or became something harder to replace. Her fiancé tapped the embossed Ward emblem. When they introduced the new investor, "I want us close enough to be remembered." The agreement already gives us access. Access isn't influence. His reflection hovered beside hers in the darkening glass. Confirm both seats. Vanessa entered their names into the digital reply form. A line warned that accepted guests would be publicly associated with Aurora's launch and its commercial partners. Her finger paused above confirm. She could still decline and keep Meridian's involvement behind conference room doors. Instead, she pressed the button. The screen flashed green. 2 credentials generated instantly. Done, she said. At home, tissue paper rustled beneath warm dressing room lights as Vanessa opened a garment box she had left sealed for nearly a year. The gown inside was deep emerald silk, cool and fluid beneath her fingertips. She had once stopped before it in a Madison Avenue window while Elias stood beside her in a faded work jacket. When he asked whether she wanted to try it on, she had laughed without turning from the glass. "You'll never be able to afford that, Elias. Don't make promises your paycheck can't keep." Now she lifted the dress from the box and stepped into it alone. The zipper whispered up her back. In the mirror, the silk caught every amber bulb and sharpened her silhouette into something deliberate. Her fiancé fastened a diamond necklace at her throat, his cologne mixing with the faint starch of the garment bag. "Tomorrow night," he said, "Ward Industries learns who Meridian is." Vanessa adjusted one emerald strap. "They'll remember." Across town, Elias worked at a temporary station inside Aurora's research center, his cardboard box resting beneath a steel table. Cooling fans roared behind insulated glass, and a laboratory held the metallic smell of heated aluminum. He had changed into a charcoal suit supplied by the Ward representative, but the old watch remained at his wrist, its scratched crystal dull beside the crisp white cuff. A final guest manifest appeared on the tablet. Elias reviewed investors, engineers, hospital directors, and municipal buyers until one entry stopped his finger. Vanessa Cole, Meridian Development. The representative stood nearby with a wireless earpiece in hand. Meridian used its new supplier status to secure 2 seats. "Given Ms. Cole's connection to you, I can remove both names before credentials are activated." Elias looked through the glass at Aurora's rebuilt housing undergoing a full load test. Its temperature line held steady for the first time. Vanessa's signature had already tied her future to the project she once believed he lacked the ability to understand. Excluding her would protect his privacy for one more night, but it would also let personal history determine a corporate decision. "No," Elias said. "Leave them on the list. If she recognizes you before the announcement, your identity may become public on her terms." Elias locked the tablet and slipped the abandoned wedding ring, still sealed inside the divorce folder, deeper into his box. "She made her choice without knowing who I was. I'll make mine knowing exactly who she is." The next evening, black cars curved beneath the Ward Grand Ballroom's illuminated canopy. Crystal chandeliers poured light over marble steps, and a string quartet trembled behind the low murmur of arriving executives. Vanessa stepped from a sedan in emerald silk, her hand resting on her fiancé's arm. 50 feet away, beyond a set of gilded doors, Elias stood beside the stage as both their names changed from invited to present. Crystal light fractured across hundreds of champagne glasses as the quartet's final note dissolved beneath polite applause. The ballroom smelled of beeswax, roses, and expensive perfume, its marble floor cool beneath Vanessa's thin-soled heels. She entered on her fiancé's arm and scanned the room for Ward executives. Then his grip tightened. Near the stage, Elias stood in a charcoal suit, speaking quietly with the Ward representative. His old steel watch showed beneath one cuff. Vanessa's fiancé gave a short laugh. "You didn't tell me Meridian hired entertainment." Several guests turned. Elias finished his sentence before looking over. "What are you doing here?" Vanessa asked. "Working." Her fiancé glanced at Elias's bare lapel, then at the service corridor behind him. "Still fixing things nobody else wants to touch." A server paused with a silver tray. Eyes clicked inside crystal. Elias lifted a glass of water, but did not drink. "Something like that." Vanessa's fiancé drew 2 investors closer with a conspiratorial smile. "This is the unemployed ex-husband." Vanessa finally stopped financing his little repair shop fantasy. The words carried farther than he intended, or exactly as far. Conversation thinned around them. Vanessa felt the tension gather against the emerald silk at her back. Elias looked at her, not at the man beside her. A single interruption would have ended it. She could have said he had worked every night, that he had never asked her to finance the workshop, that she had watched him surrender every marital asset without protest. Instead, she adjusted the diamond at her throat. Silence became her answer. Elias set his glass on a passing tray. The base touched silver with one quiet note. No defense. No accusation. That composure sharpened the laughter into something cheap, and Vanessa's fiancé seemed to hear it too. He straightened his jacket. "Enjoy the free champagne," he said. "Once Meridian joins Ward's inner circle, perhaps I can find you a position in maintenance." Behind them, the giant presentation screen awakened in a wash of blue. The Ward emblem rotated above the words "New Leadership." Lights dimmed along the outer tables, and guests began moving toward the stage. The Ward representative approached Elias with a tablet held close to his chest. "We have a compliance emergency." Elias followed him behind a velvet partition where the air was colder and the music reduced to a bass vibration through the wall. On the tablet, Meridian's supply file was opened beside laboratory results. The aluminum casings had failed heat tolerance testing. Beneath the original agreement sat an altered certificate and a concealed subcontractor declaration. "Legal ran the signatures before the announcement," the representative said. "The authorization belongs to Vanessa Cole." Elias enlarged the audit trail. Vanessa had signed the commercial summary at 6:14 p.m. The technical appendix had been replaced at 6:23 from her fiancé's executive account. Her signature remained attached to the completed package. "Does she know the appendix changed?" Elias asked. "We cannot establish that yet. As filed, she faces exposure for procurement fraud. Aurora must suspend Meridian immediately, or the company assumes the risk." Through the narrow opening in the partition, Elias could see Vanessa beside her fiancé, emerald silk glowing beneath the chandeliers. She had refused to stop his public humiliation minutes earlier. Now one electronic signature threatened her career, freedom, and name. A stage manager raised 5 fingers. The ballroom doors closed with a padded boom. On stage, a spotlight illuminated the empty podium while the screen began its countdown. 5, 4, 3. The representative offered Elias the suspension order. "Once the presentation begins, this becomes public. I need your authorization now." Elias took the stylus. Across the room, Vanessa looked toward him for the first time without disdain, her gaze fixed on the Ward document in his hand. She still believed he was the unemployed man she had discarded. Yet before the screen could reveal what he was, Elias had to decide what her silence and her signature would cost her. The countdown vanished, and the ballroom fell into a darkness broken only by the blue Ward emblem above the stage. A wheelchair rolled from the side curtain, its rubber tires whispering over polished wood. Adrian Ward sat beneath the spotlight, pale from the hospital, one hand resting on a silver-topped cane. A medical aide remained several feet behind him. The air smelled of roses and warm electrical cables, and not a champagne glass moved. Vanessa's fiancé straightened at once. "Adrian Ward," he breathed, smoothing his jacket as though the billionaire might notice him among 400 guests. Vanessa barely heard. Her gaze remained fixed on Elias, who had signed the suspension order and handed it to the Ward representative. Adrian reached the podium. Aurora was built to keep hospitals running, factories open, and working families employed, he said, his weakened voice amplified through hidden speakers. It nearly failed because too many people in this company mistook polished credentials for practical wisdom. Then he turned toward the curtain. "Its future belongs to the man who found what our experts missed, protected its payroll with his own property, and refused access to my fortune even when accepting it would have cost him nothing." Elias walked into the light. Murmurs moved through the ballroom like wind through dry leaves. Vanessa's fingers tightened around her jeweled clutch. Beside her, her fiancé gave a dismissive shake of his head, but Adrian extended one hand toward Elias. Effective tonight, Ward Industries will operate under my son, Elias Ward. Silence struck harder than applause. Vanessa's lips parted. Her fiancé's hand slipped from the small of her back. Elias, the mechanic whose boots she had hidden before dinner guests arrived, the husband she had judged by $34 in a checking account, stood beneath a billion-dollar name that had been his all along. Adrian placed the corporate seal in his palm. Camera shutters erupted from the press gallery, sharp and white against the stunned room. Elias stepped to the podium, the old steel watch visible below his cuff. My first decision concerns Aurora's Meridian contract. The main screen changed. Failed heat tests appeared beside the altered compliance certificate and its digital audit trail. Vanessa's fiancé lunged half a step toward the stage. That material is proprietary. Not anymore, Elias said. His voice never rose. Ward Industries has terminated Meridian's contract for fraudulent filing and referred the altered records to outside counsel. Security personnel moved to the aisle, not touching anyone, simply closing the distance. Vanessa's fiancé turned on her. You signed the authorization. Her clutch slipped against the emerald silk. I signed the pricing summary you gave me. Your name is on the filing. Elias touched the screen, and 2 timestamps enlarged above the room. Vanessa's signature at 6:14 p.m., the appendix replacement from her fiancé's executive account at 6:23. The audit proves Vanessa Cole approved a materially different document, Elias said. She did not authorize the substitution, did not receive the concealed subcontractor declaration, and reported concerns about the production guarantees before signing. Ward Industries will formally confirm her status as a cooperating witness, not a target. The distinction landed cleanly. Vanessa had given him silence when one sentence could have defended his dignity. Elias gave her the truth when one sentence could have destroyed her freedom. Her fiancé stared at the timestamps, color draining beneath the ballroom's gold light. 2 compliance officers approached and requested his credentials and company devices. This time, Vanessa stepped away before he could reach for her arm. She unclasped the Meridian badge from her dress and placed it on his open palm. You used my name, she said. The quartet remained silent. Nothing softened the sound of her heels as she crossed the marble alone. Elias watched her stop below the stage, where the distance between them was no longer measured in money. Adrian withdrew his hand from the corporate seal. It remained in Elias's palm now. Authority accepted, judgment delivered, and a future made irreversible. Vanessa lifted her eyes to the man she had believed incapable of becoming anyone. Why did you save me? She asked. Elias closed his fingers around the seal, but he did not answer. Because the truth did not belong to me, came Elias's answer through the quiet ballroom. Warm spotlights gleamed along the corporate seal in his hand, while the sharp scent of roses mingled with champagne left untouched on silver trays. Vanessa stood below the stage, her emerald gown luminous against the marble. Behind her, compliance officers escorted her former fiancé through the gilded doors, his footsteps fading beneath the low murmur of 400 guests. Elias stepped away from the podium. Saving you would have meant bending the facts, he said. I only refuse to bend them against you. Vanessa's fingers closed around her empty wrist where the Meridian badge had hung. Even after what I let him say about you, justice cannot depend on whether I am wounded. Camera shutters began clicking again. Vanessa turned toward the press gallery. She could leave through the private corridor, disappear before reporters attached her face to the scandal, and let Elias's statement carry the weight alone. Instead, she crossed to the podium. The microphone was still live. Its red light glowed beneath her hand. My name is Vanessa Cole, she said, her voice unsteady only on the first word. I signed Meridian's commercial summary without demanding the complete technical file. Elias Ward cleared me of intentional fraud because the evidence required it, not because I deserved his protection. Conversation stopped. Adrian watched from his wheelchair, one hand resting on his cane. Vanessa continued, I will cooperate fully, surrender any compensation connected to that contract, and testify about every instruction I received. I also owe Elias a truth that no audit can establish. Her eyes found him beyond the white glare. He did not fail our marriage because he lacked ambition. I failed to recognize work that did not advertise itself. I mistook generosity for weakness, restraint for emptiness, and visible wealth for human worth. The confession moved through the ballroom without applause. It cost her the polished future she had pursued, the professional alliances built beside Meridian, and the last excuse that could preserve her pride. She stepped away from the microphone with nothing left to hide behind. 3 months later, morning sunlight poured through new industrial windows in Queens, warming rows of steel workbenches. The building smelled of sawdust, coffee, and fresh machine oil. Above the entrance, simple black letters read Ward Skills Foundation. Aurora's recovered project now funded apprenticeships for displaced machinists, and Luis Ortega supervised the first training line, his restored compressor humming in one corner. Elias stood beside a tool cabinet in rolled sleeves, corporate seal absent, old watch still at his wrist. A courier delivered a small padded envelope addressed in Vanessa's handwriting. Inside lay a cashier's check returning every dollar she had earned from Meridian's Aurora deal, along with a request that it fund the foundation's first scholarship. No plea, no attempt to purchase forgiveness. Elias found Vanessa outside, near the open bay door, where buses groaned along the wet avenue and cool air carried the smell of rain. She wore a plain navy coat and held no designer bag. "I didn't come to ask for the life we had," she said. "Good," Elias replied. "That life is over." Her chin dipped once. "I came to ask whether I can spend time repairing what I helped damage." Elias reached into a desk drawer and removed the wedding ring she had abandoned on the mediation table. He placed it in her palm. The gold caught a thin blade of sunlight. "You didn't leave because I was poor, Vanessa. You left because you needed my worth to be visible." Her fingers closed slowly around the ring. "I know." Elias looked past her toward Luis guiding an apprentice's hands over a milling machine. "Then make your next choices without needing anyone to witness them." Vanessa returned the ring to its envelope and walked toward the subway, carrying neither his forgiveness as a prize nor his name as a ladder. Elias turned back into the workshop he had rebuilt for others, not himself. The billionaire's son had inherited an empire, but the man she discarded had already possessed the one fortune money could never create, the dignity to know his worth before anyone else could see it.